So for rapport, build rapport by talking to people briefly about something which they are interested in. This is the small talk at the beginning of the meeting. Okay? So we don't get into a long debate about something that's irrelevant, or a long discussion about something that's irrelevant to the things we're going to talk about today. But it's a break from their mind being completely filled with other stuff to going into the business discussion. So, but focus on something that they are interested in, not what you are interested in. So we have a few elements to this. Pleasantries. Pleasantries would be, what would be a pleasantry? What would we say something is a pleasantry when we meet someone? We come to their office, what would be a pleasantry?
Nice weather today, isn't it?
Sorry?
Nice weather today, isn't it?
Hi, thank you for seeing me. Oh, nice day today, isn't it? Yeah, just something very, hi, good to see you. Hi, great to see you again. Thank you for giving me the time today. Something very, 3 seconds. 3 seconds, that's it. That's a pleasantry. Then we have attention getters, credibility statement, and agenda statement. We'll go through these in more detail. These are just methodologies for you to build that trust and strong first impression from the very go. Okay, so let's have a look. So we have an acronym here, C-A-R-E-S, CARES. Right? It's easy to remember, CARES. The first one there says compliment. What would be a compliment we could pay during that first meeting?
Gorgeous office. Great
Gorgeous
location.
office.
Nice
Yeah.
statue.
Look at that statue. Yeah, what else? Fantastic view. Yeah, what else?
Love your tie.
Love your tie. Thank you.
You did great.
Yeah. The problem with a compliment is that if they've got a great view, how many other salespeople have walked in here and said, "Wow, look at that view"? Or if they've got a really cool office, how many other salespeople have said, "Wow, what a cool office"? The difficulty with compliment is you aren't the first one to say the obvious thing. Okay? So if we want to be effective in sales, we need to say something that's not obvious. Now the compliment could be, "Congratulations on your recent acquisition in South America of a major player down there. Your company's really globally expanding, aren't they?" That's a compliment, right? You've done some research. You found something they've done. You've related it to that company. That shows something. If it's something physical, be careful because everyone will have said the same thing. You might say something like, if it's a cool office, rather than, "Oh, wow, what a cool office," you might say, "Gee, I bet this work environment really gets people motivated here. It's very impressive." Or if it's a new one, "Since you've moved here, have you found a difference in the engagement levels of the team with this beautiful new office you've got?" You're relating it to something that's not the obvious thing that everyone else is going to say. So when you think about a compliment, don't come out with something that's very, very similar to what everyone else is going to say. Look for something a bit better and a bit deeper than that. Got the idea? Okay. Then ask a question. What would be a good question we could start off with? It's not a trick question, by the way, guys.
Are you having a good day?
Yeah, I know we did.
How's your week going?
How's the week going? Yeah. What else?
How was your trip to the office this morning?
How was your trip to the office this morning? Yeah, you could ask that, I guess. You probably want something a bit more, if you can, get something a bit more meaty around, you want them to start talking. Okay, so your question is only a trigger to get them talking. Yeah. So, something that relates to the business is good. We're in first quarter, right? It's the end of first quarter. Aaron, how's the first quarter been going for you guys? Is that a good question? Why is that a good question?
It's about maybe what their needs are going to be.
How they're traveling, right? If they say something like, "Oh, it's been a total disaster, it's been a nightmare," and you wanted to spend money, could this be a problem? Right? If they say, yeah, we're shooting the lights out, would that be good news if you wanted to spend money? Right? You start to take a bit of a temperature check on how they're going. It's the end of the financial year, okay, for a lot of companies. Is March the end of your financial year? In our case, it's not. In our company's case. In other companies, it might be, might not be. Good question to start off with. If they say yes, so you must be very busy at the moment closing the year out. Yes, we are. So how's it been going this last year? How's it been looking? Next question. So you see, he's trying to get the salesperson to do less talking and the client to do more talking. Now, again, this is not common practice. Gift of the gab, okay, is an idiom about being a smooth talker. Smooth talking salesperson. Have you heard that expression before? Because the idea is the salesperson is a smooth talker, got the gift of the gab, they can talk. They're really fantastic at talking. No. Salespeople are really fantastic at listening. And they're even more fantastic at asking questions and then shutting up. That's what salespeople need to do. So the idea of we're going to do a lot of talking, we ask the question to get them talking. So you're trying to think of questions that will stimulate a discussion that's interesting to them. They like to talk about themselves or their company or whatever, but hopefully it's going to give you hints, as you said, some insights, some information about where they're going. Now, you might have been referred to this meeting. You know, I really appreciate Stan for putting us in touch. He's been a great client of ours. Nice, because now Stan's relationship is the building block for your relationship, because they trust Stan, and Stan trusts you to introduce you to this company. Your trust level is already very high. So always reference it. Always bring in their power to help you build that trust. Now, this one, educate, show value. I don't know how much information you will have industry by industry for the industries you cover. But if you have something, you've seen a white paper that's relevant, or you've seen a statistical study that's relevant, or you've seen some type of public opinion survey that's relevant, then it's great to bring that type of information to the client. Bring something of value. If you have something. If you haven't got something, start finding things. Right? By the way, I found this great report on XYZ. I think this might be interesting for you. I talked about blah, blah, blah in your industry. Do you think that's relevant for how you guys are tracking in the current market? And you start to tie it back to business with a question. But don't come empty-handed if you can avoid it. In our case, we have books, you see all these books over here written by Carnegie. We take books to the meeting, we give them a book. We have, if you look at our website, anyone looked at our website yet? There's huge numbers of white papers, guidebooks, free reports. There's a whole bunch of stuff there, because we can bring that to the meeting and say, look, this might be interesting for you. You may not have that yet, but try and find where there's publicly available information. So if you're reading the newspaper and you see there's a survey that looks quite interesting, find out the organisation that put the survey together, contact them, see if it's on their website, or get them to send it to you. And then take that with you, or have that in your little resource room there of stuff you can pull on, because that's nice. Again, you're showing value. You're showing, hey, listen, I'm not just here to sell you something, I'm here to bring value to this relationship. This one here, startle. Why would we want to startle the client? What do you think startle means, Joy? Why would we want to startle the client? So startle there, why does it say that?
Urgency, or a sense of, urgency, they're losing out, or, oh wow, that is how much I really lose, or that's what the pennies add up to, or I'm missing out on something, some sense of...
What do you think, Eunice? Why else would we want to startle the client? Remember I said before, they've got all of this stuff in their head before they meet you. Right? Their head is exploding. It's so full. How do we get in there and get attention? That's one of our issues as salespeople. How do we get into their head and get some space there for what we want to talk about? Right? That's where you have some startling information that you can use. For example, you might say something like, I was just reading that latest government statistics show that the number of 14 to 24-year-olds has halved over the last 17 years. Now, they may not know that statistic. Probably they don't. And that's quite a devastating statistic. What does that mean for your business in terms of your ability to recruit the next generation for your succession plan, depending on what you're selling now? What does that mean for your company in terms of the demographics for your major markets? Hit them with something that's startling and hit them with a question to get some thinking about a problem they've got. We're in the solution provision business for problems. So, when you start putting up problems, that's a good thing. So clients start thinking about it. Now, if you've ever had this experience where a salesperson has alerted you to something you didn't know about, or you haven't prepared for, or you haven't prepared sufficiently for, that is a really valuable experience. And you value that salesperson highly because they've helped you. You've gone, oh my God, yeah, we didn't think about that. Oh my God, we haven't prepared for that. Oh my God, we're not ready for that. That is supreme value. Now, even something at this level, it might start that process. Okay? It might start that process. So, let's have a look at our manuals. You're on, I think you're on page 1.6. So let's design a few of these. Okay? Let's design one for each of them. So take a moment. Think about, now it's an imaginary situation perhaps, or it's a client you've already met recently, or it's one you're going to meet. Think of a scenario and start designing what a compliment might be, or a potential question might be, or if you've got a referral that you may or may not have one of those, or something you can talk about to educate them, and then something you might startle. Let me give you a few minutes to try that. Before that, any questions? Real good on that? Okay, where you go. When you're, listening to TED Talks, reading magazines, reading the newspaper, don't just be a passive reader of these things. Be thinking, is there anything in here I can draw out? For example, there was and I like an idiot, I threw the paper out before I actually circled it, then I forgot I threw the paper out, so I did. But I think it said that in 20 years' time, in 20 years' time, it's going to be 2035, the number of middle-class consumers will have grown from 1.8 billion globally to 3 billion. That's the stat. In 20 years' time, it's going to go from 1.8 to 3 billion middle-class consumers. That's a stat. So when you read something like that, you think, oh, bingo, that's good. In my case, one of the things I try to do is I have Twitter, but I make my Twitter account a type of reservoir of useful information. So I will tweet things like this, yes, to my 500 plus followers, none of whom I even know, but Twitter's like, but it goes in there. So it's not really something you could actually file easily, but it's in there. So I can go back and look at my own tweets and find those stats if I'm looking for them. Because I do two things. I get it as a tweet and I keep it as a stat or some information. It's not a bad thing. If you're on Twitter, it's a good thing. Or write it down somewhere, put it on Evernote or somewhere where you don't lose it, so you've got access to that type of information. Where you see stuff, capture it. And then you can use it in the Educate. Now, who hasn't done Educate yet? Everyone done? So these are short, emphasis on short interventions to get them stop thinking about all the other stuff that's in their day already, or likely to be in their day after they finish meeting you, and to give you some brain time with them. That's all it's for. So you hit them with something to get them talking, because they love to talk about things that are interesting to them, and you'll learn more from doing it that way. So nothing too complicated there. Now on the next page, on page 1.7, you have what we sell and what people buy. So start with the left-hand column. What are you selling? Write down all the things that you sell. All right? So start with that. Left-hand column there, what I sell. Write down, what do you sell? Make a list, please. So now have a look at what you've got there on the other side, what people buy, and think about from the client's point of view. And as I did with Jamie, don't stop at just the first thing that comes to your mind. Go deeper. What are they really trying to achieve? Because this comes back to motive. This comes back to understanding what the solution needs to be for the client by understanding what they really need. Okay, we'll come back to that in a minute too. Right. Take a few moments and try and match now. You're selling one thing, you're selling yourself, they're buying reliability. You're selling yourself, they're buying trust. Selling advertising space, they're buying increased revenues through a bigger client base. Okay, try that. Okay, the point here though is it's a very good exercise. Whenever you're looking at, I sell advertising for magazines, or I sell BIJTV, or whatever it is, that's what you think. What do they think? What are they looking for? So once you identify the things that are important to your client, when you get in front of the client, they're the things you talk about. Okay. We have the ability for our clients to bring our expertise, specialist expertise, to bear to save them the time and money that they have to spend to do it themselves, freeing our clients up to really work on the core parts of the business which make them the most success. Sounds good. Like me, we're a small company. Do we want to have to do all this stuff ourselves? Yeah, we can go and buy a camera set. We can go and buy lights. You know, we can do all that stuff, but we're pretty busy. It's much easier if you come and do it for us. And then we go do post-production. Oh man, shooting is one thing, editing it is another thing. Do we want to do that? Spend time doing that? Probably no. So it's much better to get you to do it for us. See? So these are the sorts of things you're going to talk about. Pain points for your client that you solve. Okay. All right, why don't we take a break? 1.8, the client interview. Now, particularly for those of you who are new to the company, this could be quite a handy thing. Find some existing clients, and presumably you're going to be taking care of them, but go and introduce yourself to them, and go through this process of asking these questions, trying to find out, are they, or why are they satisfied with the level of service? Now, sometimes people might say, well, I'm not really comfortable asking that question in case they're not satisfied. That's okay too. Very handy to know why they're not satisfied and fix the problem. Because sometimes clients are not satisfied, but they don't say anything. They're busy, or they just don't get any attention, or they don't worry about it. Or the person who was doing it was no longer there, so they sort of left it, parked it. Clear it up. If there's an issue, you can fix it. Fix it. That makes you an instant partner because you've done something to solve their issue. So don't be scared of getting some heavy weather, you know, if you're asking for feedback. And then ask them how they've applied the service that you've provided. And what did they do with it? And what were the results of that? And what was the return on investment, if it's measurable, or what they think it might be? It's not so easily measurable, based on the provision you've given them for the solution. This is very useful because what you're building up here are case studies of success. When you go and talk to other clients, it's good to reference these. But if you've not been in the company very long, like your second day, very hard to do that. How do you reference the success? You went around. But they've got the corporate history there of dealing with your company. They know what's happened, they know what's been the result, and see if you can get them to talk about it to you. And then you can say, when you're talking to a client from a similar industry, or even not a similar industry, but another client, well, we help this particular company in this industry, this is what happened, this is what the results were, this is why they were happy with our service. maybe we can do the same for you. It's a very useful piece of information to have. And again, because you're new, don't be afraid to go and ask. Go and ask them. Interview them. So it gives you a little bit of scope there on how to do that. We're not going to do that now, but I'll leave that for you to go back and look at. Then, after you've done that interview, as I say, there any problems that come up, fix the problems, resolve the problems. You might, while you're there, ask them to give you a testimonial. If they're really happy, you might send them, for example, a draft of what the testimonial might look like. Would you be prepared to give us something along these lines, based on what you told me as a testimonial? If you ask them to write a testimonial, that's okay. But everyone's pretty busy. If you give them a rough draft, they're more likely to say, yeah, that's pretty good. They sign it. Make it easy for the client. You might ask if there's anyone else they know in their industry or in their business circle or in their club or what it might be, who would also benefit from having the outcomes that they got. Same industry is a bit tricky if it's a very close competitor. They're not going to do that very likely, but if it's broad industry, not exactly a competitor, they might be prepared to do it. Useful to ask. And then see if they're ready to do some more business. We never know what's happening with companies. We never know what's going on internally. We never know what's going on with their timetables. It does happen that things change and we may not even know it, but there's been some decision somewhere which could impact on your service provision positively. They may not think to ask you. It'd be good for you to ask them. And then just say thank you. This is after the interview. You might be writing back to them, or it might be a telephone conversation, or it might be just while you're physically there at the very end, as you're wrapping it up.